Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda. This is Kevin
Hi there.
with A. Smith Gallery, and we have with us today John Hesketh from California.
John, how are you? Thanks for doing this.
Hi, I'm doing fine, thank you.
Good.
Well, today we're going to...
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, it's a lag.
Yeah.
Well, we're honored.
Well, we're going to talk today about his project, Los Angeles Revisited, and it's part of our photographic performance. We did Act 1 of Photographic Performance earlier in the year, and we had so much fun, we thought we'd do it again. So this is Act 2, and we've got 4 different photographers we're going to talk to over the last 4 months of the year. So this is the first one in this set in Act 2. And Kevin, would you like to...
Yeah, I was talking to Amanda yesterday, and we met you through the LACP review.
Yes, right.
Yes, that's
did.
right.
And it was online.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Zoom was a big thing.
Okay,
Okay, you want to read
I'm
the
gonna
bio?
read the bio. Okay. John Hesketh, born 1955, is an artist based in Anaheim, California. Interested in performative narrative, his work explores the psychodrama of identity as well as loss in family and community. John uses multiple extended exposures, often working in front of the camera to perform with light. Each work is a constructed tableau to explore the unconscious and rummage through the nature of chance. John has taught photography at Orange Coast College for 25 years and more recently at Santa Monica College. His work has been exhibited nationally and internationally. His art is found in many public and private collections, including Principal Financial, Des Moines, Iowa, the California Museum of Photography at UC Riverside, Maison Européenne de la Photographie.
Close anyway.
I studied
Close.
French. I studied French for 3 years. I should be able to do that. And the Bibliothèque Nationale de France.
Right.
Okay. Welcome, John.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, you want to read your statement for us?
Sure, this is the project statement for LA Revisited. Okay. In 1992, Los Angeles was aflame with riots and insurrection. After the verdicts of Rodney King's beating, I was among many artists who created a call for healing in the wake of the conflict. My project, Los Angeles, which was from 1992 to 2007, I collaborated with 101 members of my community to create angels in a darkened studio. Each subject stood for nearly an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, while I used strobes, flashlights, filters, actually lasers too, to mark light across their bodies and onto a stage of bed sheets with cardboard wings for references. These large angels were ablaze with vibrant colors and were forged in the tumult. They stood as guardians calling for peace and understanding at the time. It's painful to stand in one position for an hour. This was my subject's intimate spiritual sacrifice. After arranging their personal items and clothing that they bring for the angel, I would say, take a comfortable stance. I would also say, don't lock your knees. Relax, breathe normally. Your body will settle and wilt. I'm here to interpret that. You know, and most of all, I'll take care of you. Many of my subjects recall the experience as meditative and as a meditative inward journey at the center of the lights and flashing and swirling and beams into the ethereal space. Together in the dark, with their energy and my light, we created the angel. Los Angeles Revisited 2022 is really a reissue of selected angels from the previous work. Includes the same angels of the past reissued in response to the same brutal authority and political violence that is still with us today. I have reinterpreted these guardians as icons illuminated with gold and silver leafing to reflect their sacred status. Luminously floating on collection pins, some of them are that way, Their likenesses seem fragile, but their strength has proven it well, sorry, their strength was proven in their original sacrifice. Their spiritual nature is a prayer for hope and peace to prevail all these years later.
Wonderful.
So that's Los Angeles, you know.
You know, before we get started, there's probably some young people that are going to see this don't even know who Rodney King was and what that was all about.
Yeah, on March 3rd, 1991, he was stopped along with I think 2 or 3 other passengers in his car, and because he didn't pull over, he was dragged out of his car. He was last one out and dragged out of his car and was beaten severely. And it's important to understand that at this point, there are no cell phones. Somebody in an apartment complex away on the other side actually pulled out their home camcorder and started recording the incident, you know, which is interesting because of how important image making is to the political nature of, or even just being able to report things. And this was a way in which all of the truths were actually come out as what was happening in the Los Angeles Police Department, because there was it started back from I think it's Operation Hammer from during the Olympics, but it was a continuous issuance of violence on both brown and black community, and all this came together on March 3rd. And on top of that, after that, we also had a killing of a 9th grader in a convenience store in May. Her name was Letitia Harlins, and on March 19th, actually, when that actually happened. So that kind of set it really pitched everybody forward in awareness of what was happening in Los Angeles. So the officers were brought before a grand jury. They were tried, and then a year later, in April, at the end of April, the verdicts were read. Which, by the way, the trial was moved to a different city. It wasn't in Los Angeles. It actually moved to Santa Clarita, where
And
actually where a lot of
Rodney
Huh?
King is African American, right?
Are we breaking up?
Wasn't Rodney King an African American?
He was. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fine. Yes, he was. I'm sorry. I'm making that assumption. You know, everybody knows. Right. But the verdicts were actually read in April. Let's say almost more than a year later, in 1992, and essentially what it was reported. It was almost rush hour. I remember at the time, it was very strange. Everybody was very tense and on edge. And when they read that they were not guilty, it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And the verdict was read close to rush hour. So there's a lot of people. And remember, we don't have any telecommuting. This is we have to be in cars. There are people going through their normal commutes through different neighborhoods, and the riots the insurrection started happening at that point while people were in transit. So there was this kind of this hysterical kind of watching the televisions to make sure to get people going. And there really wasn't that many cell phones then either at that point. So there's no mobile cameras. It's all the news organizations. And that was a very incendiary type of a situation, set the whole city on edge. The riots went on for 4 days, and on the 5th day, they finally felt like they had it contained. I think it was on a Sunday. And it was like, after that point, it was like, well, what do we do now? And so that's where I had been working on a project because I wanted to do something new, but I already started working with the idea of angels in Los Angeles because I had felt that the name Los Angeles had become invisible, not only through the media, not only through the riots, but also because we had fires and we had earthquakes and things like that. And so I kind of thought, what would my Los Angeles be? Or what would my heaven be for that matter? So I reached out to my family to start the testing on it. And it just basically was bed sheets and some cardboard wings I would hold up. And from there, I would then, with marks of light and fields of color, start the project from there. There were other artists at that time who were also doing things like that. There was Jill D'Angelo. She made hot pink angel, like garden angels, that she would then distribute around the county, around Los Angeles, greater Los Angeles, so that people could just take them home, you know. And that was the whole project. She would record where they were at and encourage people to take the angels, take them home with them, give them a home, as a way of some sort of sense of healing. I mean, she started the project. The first angels she placed were at the First AME Church, Baptist Church in South Central Los Angeles, and then it radiated out from there. And my project was started basically with my family, and then my friends, and then my community, and then after that, it became the friends of their community, until there was actually 100 and actually there were 100 angels. And at the very end, I asked some of the photographic, because there was a lot of artists that were part of the angels. I would ask them to come back, and we gave them a little assignments, and then they shot me. So I'm the 101st angel.
Well, I tell you what, let us screen share your images.
Right.
Can you see that, John?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask a question here. The idea of your subjects physically and spiritually making a sacrifice for your project is very compelling. Can you tell us more about those moments and the people involved?
Well, actually, and it's interesting because it's not just that it was very. First of all, they're bringing items of their own, and basically they lose their identity to become, and so that both of us can find the angel in the dark. So it's a strange collaboration, because I'm asking them to stand still. A lot of them want to strike a pose. I would say, "Are you seriously? Can you hold on to that?" You know, but yet they would. And they're there for 45 minutes, and holding your arms out for 45 minutes or holding your position for 45 minutes is a long time. So I would go in and hit little strobes quickly, just to get the sudden detail of the folds of their skin, or the details of what they were wearing. In fact, this person right here almost fainted.
Oh, wow.
As in fact, the reason why the color is the way it is because I had to cut it short to allow her to keep her feet in the same position, and then put her head down close to her knees so she could revive herself and then come back into position.
Wow.
And then I was able to finish her off after that. But that kind of chance and serendipity is the thing that I really try to embrace with this work.
Right.
Because I'm in front of the camera constantly. And as a result, these lights are like flashing all over these people. And many of them felt that in itself was this kind of mesmerizing spiritual experience. And even meditative because they're trying so hard to stay in position. And I ask them not, they don't have to, but they try it as best as they can, but the body's just not meant to be still like that for that long.
The attitude of the hands is wonderful.
Yeah. She came in and says, okay, I want to be your angel of pain, and I want to be like this. And then she struck that pose. I said, I don't think you're going to be able to hold that, but let's do a couple of things right off the bat. And then she folded over, and then I got her back up in the same position. As long as her feet were in the same position, everything would, I would be able to make it work.
Yeah.
And all of this is happening at that time on a one single sheet of 4x5 film.
Wow.
This is one of my former students, John. I wish I remembered his name. He's going to kill me for it, but he between the time that I had him as a student and when I asked him to become an angel, he actually lives in Germany, and he was coming back to the United States. And I said, would you come back? And because I realized that I didn't know what I was going to do, but he had actually had a motorcycle accident between him being a student and me doing this picture. And the project had moved quite along the lines. I think he's around 93 or something like that of the angels. And so I quickly, I told him to bring any personal object. I also, all my angels, I tell to bring a hat. Largely the hat was a way to take away their identity, but yet you can still see the persona of the stance and things like that. But it also then allows the angel to be just the angel, not really a portrait of them directly. So we brought this little horseshoe that always brought him luck. And I said, would it be okay if you take off your clothes? Because I built a box for your artificial leg. I had done that about 20 minutes before the actual shoot. And he said, yeah, no problem. And I said, okay, let's go. But it's that kind of, I oftentimes I have no idea what I'm going to do when I walk into the actual studio and prep for these angels. And then it's just through some sort of performance, we can actually pull it all together. At this point of the project, I was shooting an 8x10 film. And because of the length and because of the period in photography in which this work actually kind of occurred, I shot it on 4x5 because I could actually then print it on the Cibachrome paper all in one go. But by the time I started the project back over, my access to a color, I had a color enlarger, but the Cibachrome was gone, and I had to go to a digital situation, and the enlargers were all gone. So I just shot everything on 8x10 at that point.
Right. So tell us again how you get the color.
It's okay. This is probably one of the crazier aspects of it. I have a very strong background in color printing. But one of the things that really intrigued me was dye transfer printing. And so one of the things I did was I took the same filters that you would use in dye transfer, like the blue, red, and green filters, to make the records for printing with dye transfer. Well, all I did was I went through the same red, green, and blue exposure sequence with the filters in front of the camera. So oftentimes when you see the more kind of vernacular type of light painting, people are putting filters on their flashlights or their light sources.
Right.
And so you have these very short experiences to actually do work on it. But if you put the filters, in my situation, the red, green, and blue filter on the lens, then the exposure is extended out a long time. So I have a chance to actually have some way of improvising along the way. So the project would start like a jazz performance. There would be you start on a downbeat and you end on a downbeat, but there's a riff and you're going to do what you're going to do in between. And so that performance then becomes the actual angel itself as well.
Right, right.
But the red, green, and blue filters, I'm able to photograph just the red layer of the film, just the green layer of the film, just the blue layer of the film. And so when I wanted a color, if I wanted magenta, then I would expose that same area on him with red and blue, or if I wanted cyan, it would be blue and green. If I wanted it to be yellow, then it'd be green and red. I know
Right.
it's complicated, but it feels natural in my brain to do that.
Right.
And then you get these other lovely tertiary colors that are just really fantastic. That you can't get with paint, but you can get it with light.
Right. So most of these people, you knew prior to.
Yeah, there a lot of them are my yeah, exactly. They're my community. They're my creatives. You know, the other artists. Like this is Nada Osline, who is part of the community out here. She came in with this prosthetic, and I thought, oh my God. And I just thought that was just a fantastic. I don't know if Nada really thought what was going on. But when she brought the prosthetic,
And
I
what
thought
is the prosthetic? Where is it?
it's like a wound. We have these things called drills for earthquakes and things like that. And
Yeah.
sometimes what they do is they assign people to be different casualties. She had a prosthetic from one of those earthquake preparedness things.
Oh, wow.
And so she wears it, and I can blend it together, with just the light of the flashlight.
Wow. Fantastic. So what was the mood of these people while this was going on? It was probably relatively playful, right? Or no?
It was very playful, and the best part was when I would work with either some of my students or someone I knew really well, or if it's somebody, if they were artists, they brought their own artistic experience to it. So I was able to, but there'd be little things like this one with Deidre. She came in, I said, can you put your hair in front, and we'll just use sunglasses, because she thought she only had sunglasses as per her hat. And I said, well, we need to obscure you a little bit more. Let's bring the hair forward and do it that way.
Wow.
And this one's actually Doug McCullough, actually.
That's wonderful. It has the feeling of going through angel tarot cards or
I never associated angels and tarot.
yeah.
Or maybe they should be like put these on candles and make them little angel
yeah,
candles.
exactly.
That would be cool.
Those I'm Catholic, so there used to be those what they call them? They were like saints cards. They were almost like trading cards that you could get.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can also tell you that as an artist in my community, and I attend their shows, they attend my shows. I mean, I see angels. I know who the angels are. A lot of the angels don't know the other angels.
Right.
So when I'm out there in the community, I know who the angels are. That's one of my angels there. That's one of my angels over there.
That's great. So do you have a written? I mean, did you do like diary entries or keep a journal or whatever while you were going through this process?
For this, no, because I was not really. It was just keep iterating, and how do you make it different than the other one, and then playing off with their what they brought. This is John Upton, actually. He brought a whole Japanese suit, or
like a kimono kind of thing, or
it's kind of like that. Kind of he referred to it as his Meiji man.
Wow.
But he's quite a Japanophile, so it was appropriate. Another one of my students, one of my first students, actually, Amy.
So how did you get all of that activity in those wings?
Well, you, you go down to the hardware store and they got an aisle of flashlights, and I used a lot of mag flashlights, I can tell you that. But they would come in different sizes. So each flashlight has a different what do you call it, stroke to it, as well as I would also go out and look for laser pointers and things like that. So I believe a lot of what you're seeing in the angel itself is a laser. And then I
Right.
would stop it every once in a while to get the kind of dots. So you can see where I painted, that's the laser printer is laser printer, the laser pointer is red, but where I painted green, red crosses over into yellow. And then
Right.
also there's a little bit of cyan on the outside of that, so it then becomes white.
Fantastic.
All of them are predictable, but the circumstances are not.
Now this one is quite different from the rest.
Yeah. Well, Daryl, who this is all about, is very different. He brought all this stuff in the foreground, and it's like, what? And he felt like he was a chef, and he also brought these child blocks, and I was able to get his initials in there, Daryl Curran.
Oh.
And yeah, some are I don't know, they're just different. They become very different in many different ways, mostly because when I'm doing this, it looks nuts, and it is nuts because it's like I'm just doing as much as I can do and being instinctual. To make the gold appear on the Los Angeles Revisited, I actually had to tone down the background in the computer before actually printing it out. So the color of the angels are intact, but the background I had to actually tone down so that the metal could actually show through.
Right, right.
In this case, I'm using copper instead of gold.
And
But all of the angels are actually silver flaked behind, or silver coated backing, or silver leaf on the back.
and
And
what paper
then
were you printing on?
this is actually a vellum.
Uh-huh.
And this is the trick. One of the problems is that I really want to make bigger ones, but I'm going through all these different kinds of vellum types that are out there to figure out which ones have the most translucency. And so not all vellums are equal, and not all vellums are printable either. They have to have a little setup on them. And this is my first angel, which was this is my late wife, Peggy.
And
She
this
was
was
the first one.
the very first one that you made,
Very first one. It was just going to be a test,
right?
and it ended up being 101 of them.
Well, can you tell us more about what caused you to revisit your Los Angeles project in 2024?
Well, basically after, I mean, I always wanted to do the gold leafing, and I didn't know exactly how that was going to with the angels. But when it became clear after George Floyd and the January 6th insurrection, along with Breonna Taylor, in 2020, the same thing was happening. So I felt if I could make these strong, I felt I could make them stronger by making them more icons. And I felt like it was time to reissue it, just to say the same thing's happening again, and so that was kind of the impetus of Los Angeles. Actually, I had, the first time I made these, I showed it at I think Medium Photo. And I realized that I was showing them on I think it was the 35th, one of the anniversaries of the riots.
Right.
And that just reinforced the notion that it was time to bring these out again. It's a call for peace. Their spiritual nature is a prayer for hope and peace
Right.
to prevail, to not go back after all these years.
Oh, wow. Well, I went to your website and looked again at your body of work, The Presence of Absence. The concept of light painting one particular section of wall is wonderful. I watched your video. It is very moving. Can you tell us how you segued from that initial project to this project? There has to be some connection, right?
Well, actually, the angels were all complete well before this.
Uh-huh.
In the first iteration of Los Angeles, I was the Presence of Absence had actually started back in 2012. It was inspired by my wife, who actually at the time she was finishing her novel, as well as taking chemo. So like our lives got very small between the brain fog and the rewrites. And even though she was an author, we both kind of collaborated between each other. So like our banter would be, like, especially after the book was published, it'd be like the success of her book, and then also the curiosity of this project that I had started when she first sold her book. First sold the rights for it. So I had been working on this thing. At the time, it wasn't called Presence of Absence, but it was called Stucco Sessions, because I would lock down the camera for the evening and shoot off the wall. It was the same wall over and over for about 8 years. And then right after that, I thought I had a handle on it, and then she passed away. And quite suddenly, after being 5 years cancer-free, she just passed away very suddenly. And I went back to the wall to finish our conversation, that creative conversation that we would have, and try to understand what had happened to us at that point. And it was I went back with a very large camera to shoot it, so that it would be very, very, have a high pixel density to it. And the same images kept coming back up. And the work actually, for the longest time, was just black and white, because it was really the only thing I could deal with at the moment. Those images that couldn't be colored. And it really kind of it was an abstraction of where I was at in my grief. So the entire Presence of Absence is my trajectory of my grief and recovery. After a while, and in fact, this is just recently, you get to a place where you have gratitude and forgiveness. You actually come up to a place where you can actually, your grief changes to accepting the fact that you're just grateful that you had their presence in your life. And so the color came back. The color came back in the project. So now the project actually has both black and white and color that kind of reflects my trajectory of grief and how it evolved.
Right.
I don't know if I didn't
Well,
really
no,
too succinct on that.
No, that answered the question. I had my timing confused. I was thinking that this project was after that project, but it was,
I'm sorry, the LA Revisited was after that project.
oh, okay,
Yeah, it was after that project.
okay.
Um,
Another question or observation too. And I suggest anybody go to John's website and look at that project and the video. It's really wonderful.
thank you. Thank you for your thoughts on the presence of absence.
And you know, as someone who's hung, this just struck me. I thought this was really great. As someone who has hung hundreds of exhibitions, there was something you did in the presentation of the work that immediately caught my eye. You placed images on top of and merging with other images. This simple decision for me made the installation become more of a piece whole.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that? I don't know that it was actually hung like that. It was
Actually, it hasn't. I've had some opportunities to put the work up, but I haven't had an exhibition with them hung like that.
right.
But that is my intention. I think part of that came from it. I was at Pier 24, and there was an installation of Tina Franco Klein's work in which she did something similar to that. And the idea of grief is not something that's very linear. So my thought was this idea of using the black and whites became kind of my vocabulary because they're kind of in syllables, words, and phrases. When I have them all together, which is the entire presence of absence, the different aspects of grief, they are kind of mixed together in installations. And that's where you get that overlapping. So I actually use vinyl adhesive to make a wall-on-wall art of the large color work, and then the black and whites are not sprinkled, but they're worked in from the edges or right on to the actual color pieces
Right.
and conjunction pieces to them.
Very nice. Well,
Thanks.
I think we're at the end here.
Okay.
I'm going to stop the share. Well, John, thank you very much for doing this.
Oh, great.
This is one of those projects that's needed. It definitely makes a difference.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's, I just do things that are as personal as possible. And I all of a sudden find that all of a sudden they connect to things that are larger. Like even the presence of absence, I feel like we're all leftovers from the pandemic. There's like millions of neighbors that are no longer at our sitting with us at our table, so together that shapes our collective presence of absence.
Right.
We're all going through our passage, and so that's I just pick up on those aspects of how I encountered them.
So how many subjects did you shoot? How many people were involved
in the Los Angeles?
In the Angels project?
It was just 100.
100 exactly.
Yeah, in fact, I don't show all 100. I would probably show them all like in a large grid or something like that.
Right.
But they all of them had some aspect that was great. It's just like, even the test, which I never thought I was going to show the picture of Peggy, that I thought that was just going to be a test, and that ended up being whatever it is at that time. And as the project evolved, you see this change.
Right.
Right. I used every subject that I had. And so I think in mass, I think it has a strength in that.
Right. Wow. So you've changed the lives of 100 people at least, and then all the other people that are associated with the 100 people, and the people that are associated with the 100 people. Good job, man.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Very much so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for all of your attention and the ability for me to talk about it, because, you know, sometimes it's just me and the dog. I just, can you see her down
Being
here?
kind of shy.
There he is, yeah. All
Okay.
right, John, thank you so very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
We really appreciate your time.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.